Music Podcasts.
Hi guys, welcome to Learn Kenyan Law with Wanjiku. I am your host, Wanjiku Mwangi. And for today, the theme is the Education Law and Policy Framework for Persons with Disabilities. And I am joined by a guest who is well versed when it comes to things about persons with disabilities. Karibu sana, Madam Maryann.
Yes, thank you.
Kindly introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. My name is Maryann Mwangi, and I'm a teacher by profession. Yeah. I'm a special education teacher, whereby I work with the hearing impaired learners.
Great.
Yeah.
So, Madam Maryann, I want us to basically talk about the laws that enable the persons with disabilities here in Kenya to have access to education. And before I even go too far, let's talk about what do we mean when we're saying the persons with disabilities. So basically, according to my understanding, this includes those people who either have a long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairment, which basically hinders their full effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. According to you, what's the definition of persons with disabilities?
You are right, madam. It is exactly the same. Disability includes, it can be physically, it can be physical, sensory, visual, and there are those factors that hinder a person to fully participate in order to achieve their potential in their life.
So let's now come to the Constitution. Madam Maryann, what does the Constitution stipulate when it comes to education?
Constitution stipulates about, for example, Article 43, it is stipulate about the right to education. Everyone have got a right to education regardless.
Regardless of whether you are, disabled or not, whether you have enough money or not. It's basically every child has a right to education.
Exactly. Article 53 also talks about right to free and compulsory education.
So basically, meaning that every child should be able to attend and access education.
For sure, you are right. We also have Article 54. Article 54 talks about a person with any disability is entitled to access educational institution. The person with the disability has the right to access or to use the facilities
of an institution.
In the institution, that whether it is integrated in the society or not.
Yeah, so what I hear from Article 53, it basically tells us that even when institutions are coming up, or rather when they are building their premises, they should also put into account people who have disabilities. Meaning walkways should be, for wheelchairs, we should have accessibility to those ones. And such things.
Yes, the institution should take into consideration all those factors that you have mentioned to accommodate all kinds of persons.
Yeah. What else? Do we also have another article that talks about...
Article 56 also talks about the minority and marginalized groups that have provided special opportunities in education.
So basically under Article 56, we are saying that the marginalized group, or rather the minorities, are provided for special opportunities when it comes to education.
Very true.
So I think the next thing that we can also talk about is the Act, especially the 2003 Persons with Disabilities Act. And I feel like Article 56 is the major thing that holds this conversation close, because as we want to specialize on persons with disabilities. So let's talk about the 2003 Persons with Disabilities Act. What can you say about that?
The 2003 Persons with Disability Act, it is the one that established the National Council for Persons with Disabilities. And this, the council, which is represented in the ministry, and is responsible for education.
Okay, so basically you're saying that this act has provided for the National Council for Persons with Disabilities.
Yes.
So what are some of the functions of this council?
The council, it is the responsibility of the council to make sure that persons with the disability achieve equal opportunity. For example, in education, they should be assimilated in education, equal opportunities in employment. We also have sporting, recreation, and cultural activities.
Okay, so basically this council is very hands-on on ensuring that, we are very inclusive as a society and especially as schools when it comes to probably persons with disabilities participating in some of these, functions, some of these competitions, especially when it comes to things like music festivals and sports. So I don't know if when we come to the ground, is this law really used? Is this practiced?
This one is exactly done because of late, the persons with the disability, for example, the learners with the disability, they are fully included when it comes to music festival, cultural activities, even in sports. They take parts. They are engaged in various activities and they participate, and that way they fully enjoy being included.
That is really great. What's the other function of the National Council for Persons with Disabilities?
The National Council also recommend measures to prevent discrimination against persons with disabilities. For example, persons with disability, they have the right to apply for scholarship because everybody in Kenya have got a right to apply for this scholarship, and the persons with disability is not left behind. They have also the right to apply for loan as long as they have the potential to repay the loan. Their school fees is a bit lowered.
So meaning they have subsidies.
Exactly. Meaning they can, in order to boost them to access education in various institutions.
So do we have another function when it comes to the National Council for Persons with Disabilities?
Yeah, there are several of them. Actually, we can't finish them all of them here. But the same council also advocate for learning institution to admit learners with disability, so long as they meet the requirement. They are not to be sidelined. They are not to be denied access to institution whereby they can get the skills.
So basically, this the Council for Persons with Disabilities is always emphasizing on the fact that when someone who has a disability wants to apply, let's say, for example, a degree, as long as they meet the entry requirement, they should not be discriminated against.
Exactly. All the way from basic education, they need to be admitted in those institutions. When we move to high school, they are supposed to be admitted, so long as they meet the qualification. Even in universities, when they are doing their diplomas, actually we have several of them in our country.
That's great. Now let's talk about the 2013 Basic Education Act.
But before we go to that, we have another function of the council whereby the learning institution shall take into account. They make sure that all the learning institution takes into account the special needs of persons with disabilities. It is the responsibility of the institution, after admitting those persons with disabilities, may be it in basic education, primary level or high school or even university. It is the responsibility of those institutions to make sure that they accommodate those special needs learners. They have to modify the environment so that those learners with the various challenges can access all the resources within the institution.
Great. Then I really see that this council has a lot of responsibilities, this National Council for Persons with Disabilities. And I feel like they have already done some of the functions that they're supposed to be doing anyway, because you've clearly told me that there is, people with disabilities performing music festivals. Nowadays, they're even able to just go and apply in universities if they want a specific course, as long as
they are enrolled.
As long as they've met the entry requirements, they're enrolled. We've also talked about the fact that for example, getting subsidies, applying for scholarships, they're really advocates of not having discrimination. So I feel like this 2003 Persons with Disabilities Act is really key in the way us as Kenyans here treat our people who are disabled in one way or another. So let's talk about the Basic Education Act of 2013. What are some of the most important things that you feel like this Basic Education Act has in terms of education when it comes to persons with disabilities?
The Basic Education Act 2013 also advocated for the implementation of special need education. It was also supporting the 2003 on Persons with Disability Act. It boosted, it made sure that it advocated that it should be implemented countrywide, meaning in all the counties. There is inclusion of the persons with the disabilities
in terms of education. So they are really key in ensuring that education does not only serve all the other people and leave out the people with disabilities.
Exactly.
So what else do you feel like the 2013 Basic Education Act has, I feel like the most important thing when it comes to also the Basic Education Act, and I feel like you've also mentioned it again, is that they are really vocal on ensuring that there's access to education without discrimination.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the Basic Education Act reiterates what the 2003 Persons with Disabilities Act was saying, that a person should not be discriminated against simply because they have a specific kind of disability. So we can probably move to the other act, which is the 2001 Children's Education Act.
The 2001 Children Education Act advocated right to education and training free of charge. Persons with the disability are to be included in institutions regardless. And they are to be trained. And most probably, if you look at the primary levels, they are to access education for free. As far as this Act 2001 is concerned, it is right to education and also training for free of charge.
Especially for children with disabilities.
Yes.
That is really interesting. And this, for me, it shows me that there has been change in terms of our history, because if I can remember well, we've had children who've had disabilities who've not been able to go to school. Some of them were locked up in their houses. You know, their parents felt like they should not go to school. But with all these laws, they are very clear from the Constitution. Article 43 is saying children have the right to education. Article 53 is saying this education is not only free, but it is also compulsory. So if as a parent you're found locking up your kid because they're having a disability and you're not taking them to school, then that is ground for, being taken to court and probably being imprisoned.
Exactly.
So I feel like this 2001 Children's Education Act is also telling us there's also free education. So as a parent, there's no reason as to why
they are keeping their children at home.
Yeah.
They need to be taken out. So that at least they can be taught some skills for self-reliance. We can probably move to the next policy framework that is really key in terms of persons with disabilities. And this is the 2009 National Special Needs Education Policy Framework. So, Madam Maryann, what can you tell us about this policy framework? This policy provides guidance in implementing education for learners with special needs. In this case, that is where it provides guidance on use of technology, incorporating technology in learning. And we have seen it even today working. It also give guidance on advocacy and creating awareness.
That's really interesting. And I feel like us as Kenya, and this is something I usually say on this show, in Kenya we really have good laws written on paper. We have the Constitution, we have the 2003 Persons with Disabilities Act, we have the Basic Education Act, we have the Children's Education Act. Now we also have a framework, which is the National Special Needs Education Policy Framework.
Exactly.
But now the biggest question that most of our listeners probably even have is, are there any results that we might be having from all these good laws which are good on paper? What are some of the results that, as a professional trained teacher, when it comes to special needs teaching, you can sit down and clearly say that our government has done this, it has done this, and it has done this? So what are some of the results?
There are several improvements or good results that we have seen after all this advocacy, as after all the Constitution have included the persons with the disability. For example, special need education institutions have really increased. There are so many. In every county, in every district, we get the special education institution. And once they have increased, it is a clear indication that learners are being taken to learning institutions.
So basically you're saying that these education institutions have increased as compared to, the other times.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
so I also hear you saying that at least in every county there's an educational institution that is catering for...
There are several of them.
Okay, great. So what is another result or improvement that you've seen?
Another result of the advocacy that we have gone through, we have training of special need education teachers. Majority of teachers are being trained on special education, on how to handle those learners in the classroom. And most of them have really attended those institutions. We have several institutions that offer courses for teachers working with learners with special needs.
Yeah, so not only are the institutions increasing, but you're also having enough manpower to, be able to guide.
Exactly. The personnel is available. The government has made sure that the personnel is available in our country, and they have really done good work.
That's really interesting. So what's another improvement that you feel like we've gotten from all these laws that we've been talking about?
After all this, we have also seen that there is establishment of educational assessment and resource services centers countrywide. We, in every county, as I have said, once the institutions are there, the educational assessment centers have also increased. We have several of them whereby learners are taken by the parents to be assessed. And the reason for this, it has also boosted the early identification. Once learners are identified at a younger stage, the parent is guided in those institutions on how to take care of the learner or where the learner can get access to education or support.
That's really interesting. So we are saying, at least as a parent, if maybe I even suspect that my kid is probably deaf, I can take this child of mine to an assessment resource facility that is able to tell me that, this child does not hear on this ear, or rather this child is deaf from this point. And so the earlier you identify the disability in that child,
the better.
And now you're even able to be referred to a specific, educational institution or something like that. Yeah,
the parent is referred to appropriate, let me use the word appropriate institution, whereby the learner can access the kind of support that the learner requires.
Interesting. So what's another improvement that you feel like we've had as a country, especially when it comes to people with disabilities?
With the creation of the education assessment and resource services in all counties, this one have brought about services have been moved closer to the communities. If the educational assessment and resource services is near them, they are able to access the services at their own leisure.
So basically parents don't have to travel a long distance to access some of these things.
Exactly, for sure.
That is definitely an advantage because, according to history, most of our things that were based in Nairobi. So, for example, if I was in Kirinyaga, I had to travel from Kirinyaga to Nairobi to get some of these services.
Yeah, nowadays they are all over the whole country.
Great. So that's the power of devolution.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what's another improvement that you feel like?
Another improvement in our country that we have realized is the level of awareness have been raised. In programs for children with disabilities, hence reducing stigmatization. Because many people have been educated on special education, on special disabilities. They are able to accept them. They are able to incorporate them in the society. They are aware of what is happening when they see a person with a disability. They accept them because already they have been taught about them. Awareness have been created.
That's a really good thing because, again, from history, we've seen that people are locking up their kids in their houses. They're not proud of their children who have disabilities. But, of course, as time goes on, people now become aware that, disability is not inability. And just because I do not have this, it does not make me less of a person. What's another improvement that you feel we've had?
The other improvement, our government have also increased budget allocation towards development of infrastructure for special need education. A lot of money is being taken to educational institutions whereby persons with disabilities are catered for.
Yeah.
For example, we have institutions like units for various disabilities. We have even schools for the disabled learners. Our government have increased the budget, and once they get the money, they are able to adjust to buy all the facilities that are needed for those learners.
Yeah, that is also another good thing. If we are having more money in this department, then it means more access, more positivity, so to speak.
Exactly.
So can we talk about the CBC? Is there any way that the CBC has incorporated the special needs people?
Well, for sure. We can say that this is another good result in regard to special education.
Okay.
Because the CBC already incorporated or included the learners with special needs. Teachers were well trained on key components on special education in their competency-based education. And at the same time in this CBC transformed the country by identifying the potential that children have and nurturing them through curriculum designed on application of knowledge. The curriculum now is designed in such a way that it is practical input, whereby after you identify the potential of the learner, you move towards that. For example, if this learner cannot read, it is not a must that you continue forcing reading to the learner, yet the learner have got no potential. You use practical teaching. You use practical input. For example, you can use beadwork. You can teach beadwork, how the learner can be making beads. We have also sewing, sewings of clothes and needlework, whereby they can even make mats, and that way the learner will gain skill for self-reliance. CBC is a good thing towards the special education learners.
I'm really glad to hear that CBC has also been inclusive when it comes to people who have special needs. And another thing, Madam Maryann, I've heard you talk about is the fact that at least we've had more special needs institutions increased, and we've also had the training of teachers when it comes to the special need education. So this takes me to some of the institutions that we have when it comes to training teachers.
But before I tackle that one, I can take you back to the CBC and say this. There are those learners who are able to continue with the learning, the stage-based learning. They can learn the same thing that the other learners are learning. But with the CBC, it came in and adapted that content that the other learners are learning to suit the persons with disabilities. For example, the hearing impaired learners. We have also the visually impaired learners. The content that the others are learning, it has been also been adapted to accommodate them.
That's really a good positive. And I'm also I'm thinking as a parent, if you hear such a thing, you would feel like there's also a lot of inclusivity when it comes to a child who has special needs. I don't know if you have another point still under CBC, or we can move to the other institutions that train teachers.
We can move on.
So let's now talk about, I've heard you, clearly talk about the fact that we have more special need education institutions have increased, and there is also need of training teachers. So can we talk about some of the major institutions right now in Kenya that are key when it comes to training teachers?
One key institution that train teachers is Kenya Institute of Special Education. That one, that is the institution we have. It was the original.
Meaning it's been there for a long time.
For a long time, that used to conduct teacher training courses to teachers who teach children with special need and disabilities.
So what are some of the things that, the functions, or rather the role that KISE plays when it comes to training teachers on special needs education?
There are so many laws in regard to KISE, because it also conducts in-service courses for personnel working in all fields of special need education. Teachers working with the learners with the special need education at times is cumbersome for them, such that they need support from other people. And those are the personnel that we are saying they are working in the field of special need education. For example, we have the teacher aides. We have those who cooks for them, because they need to be trained. For example, if it is for hearing impaired learners, they need some help. Those teacher aides need to be trained on sign language in order for them to communicate with the deaf learner. We also have the VI, visually impaired learners. The teacher need other personnel, other assistance personnel, the teacher aide, the teacher guide, and at the same time they need to be trained. And KISE offers such training to those personnel.
Interesting. That's really interesting and advantageous as well. Another key role that I've also seen when through my research when I was talking to you about this interview is that KISE conducts teacher training courses specifically to teachers who teach children with special needs and disabilities.
Exactly.
So even after you've gone from your university training, for example, you've graduated, KISE is still there to offer more training in case there's any kind of changes that arises when it comes to teaching a child.
Exactly. It is capable of even offering more guidance. Yes.
That's really interesting.
Another role is that KISE also learn educational and psychological assessment center for training of teachers of children with special need education. And on the same note, they also train education, assessment, resource services.
So basically, this takes us back to what we were talking about when it comes to assessment. That is where we were talking about the educational assessment and resource services.
Exactly.
So we are saying that KISE offers this kind of services.
Yeah, they offer those kind of courses whereby they equip personnel with information on how to psychologically assess the learners so that they are able to know the kind of support that the learner needs.
Okay, that's interesting. Another thing that I've also seen with KISE is that they're also able to conduct research when it comes to special needs education. So not only are they training teachers, not only are they training personnel, not only are they, giving you psychological assessment skills, they're also conducting research on their own as a research center to ensure that, the general public and the teachers themselves are at par with whatever it is that is happening.
Yes, because the country is dynamic and learning, or as well as the education is dynamic, in that things keep changing and more technological things are upcoming. And they also need to bring some changes, the current issues that are coming. In order for them to address those current issues, they continue doing research so that they can be at par with the dynamic growth of life in our people, in our country.
So is there another function of KISE?
Another function, KISE function as a resource center for the production and giving information to the general public on special needs disabilities.
So basically this is creating awareness to the general public when it comes to matters of disabilities.
The institution keep on enlightening people on any upcoming modalities, or they keep on creating awareness to the general public on how to address various issues in regard to special needs education.
That's really great.
KISE maintain, repair, design, produce, and assemble special materials and equipment for persons with special needs disabilities. If, for example, it is someone with a hearing impairment, they repair the hearing aids. If it is a visually impaired person. They also train them on how to use the walking cane.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So KISE has a lot of positive functions.
Exactly.
And I don't know if we can just mention a few of other institutions that are key in, offering education when it comes to special needs education. Which is another institution that that offers?
There are several of them. We have even in Kenyatta University. Maybe after an individual graduate from KISE, they can still proceed with their education to Kenyatta University, whereby they can acquire their degree in various fields.
Great.
Yes.
So you said you have Kenyatta University.
Yes.
Which other one do we have? I've also
KEMU. We also have KEMU.
Basically, most of our universities. Right
majority
now.
of them, they are upcoming.
That's really interesting. And again, thank you so much for taking us through this episode. I am really glad that you've enlightened us about the education laws and the frameworks that exist that support persons with disabilities. And I don't know, what's your parting shot before we come to an end? What is that one message that you can tell us in terms of, inclusivity when it comes to persons with disabilities?
I can say that our country have really done a lot of work towards boosting the persons with disabilities.
Yeah.
But there's one or two things that I would suggest, personal suggestion. This one being to continue the country to continue doing more on special education, by more so to say, adding more personnel. Adding more personnel because since we have seen the institutions have come up, learners have increased in every county. At the same time, we need more personnel to be added in the learning institutions. And there are some caps there are some conditions that limit the additional of the personnel. For example, in hearing impaired institution, for them to add the personnel, they consider the number of learners in the whole institution, but not considering the workload. The number can be less. For example, maybe the number can be less. The number of learners can be less, but the workload in that field, not forgetting that hearing impaired, visual impaired, they follow the curriculum as it is. It is most of them follow the stage-based learning, whereby this learner will have to cover all the subjects, or the whole design. The teacher will have to follow the design the way it is laid down. If the personnel is not added, there will be inadequacy in work.
So basically I hear you're saying that, for example, you might be having less number of pupils, but the kind of attention one pupil requires is not as much as compared to, the other people who do not have hearing impairments.
We have grade 1. There are 5 learners. They need to be attended to. They have the right to education. And this teacher, we have another grade 2. And maybe the learners are 10. They also need to be catered for. They need to be taught all the subject, all the learning areas. Those learners need to be taught alongside the design allocated to grade 2. We move to grade 3. This teacher also have got maybe 12 learners. So when they consider the number of learners in that institution, they will fail or they will overwork the teachers who are there. And when the teachers are overworked,
productivity level is low.
Exactly. So that is one advice that I would like to give to the institutions that are concerned in staffing of the teachers.
That is really a very nice point. And again, thank you so much, Madam Maryann. I don't know if you have another point to add.
The other point I can say is this. Teachers need the teacher aid in those learning institutions. For example, I'm taking for example the hearing impaired. At times you find that there are those learners with multiple disabilities. For example, the learner is deaf, mild autistic, mental challenged, and this learner with the mild autistic autism, mild autism, he is in the hearing impaired department.
Yeah.
He cannot keep seated long
Yeah.
as the teacher is. The concentration will be interrupted.
Yes.
He need a teacher aide to take this learner out for some few minutes and then bring the learner back. But if the teacher is alone in that class, the teacher cannot manage to leave the other learners and walk aloud the compound with the same learner. So that is the importance of the teacher aide. The third point that I have just remembered is, I have done a lot of research and I have tried to look for an institution whereby hearing impaired learners are catered for at the level of pre-primary 1 and pre-primary 2.
Okay.
Most of the institutions starts from grade 1. And in this case, when the learner comes, majority of them do not enter in pre-primary 1 and pre-primary 2. And when they are admitted in the institution, and the institution starts for grade 1, they know nothing that was supposed to be covered in pre-primary 1. So I can urge the government to make sure that early childhood education for the hearing impaired learners is fully considered and taken care of.
That is really important because you lack the foundation if you are not able to access pre-primary 1 and pre-primary 2.
Exactly.
Great. I really appreciate your responses and your views. Some of us have really been enlightened in terms of persons with disabilities. And for me, the last thing that I can talk about is that for me, it's very important in regards to how a society treats its disabled. It is basically a measure of how civilized we are. So as a Kenyan society, how we treat the disabled people in our community, it shows us, are we civilized and at what point are we civilized? And we are all striving for civilization. So we want a society that treats the disabled people in a positive way. And when we're saying treating them in a positive way, we are saying from the point where they are like 1 year old to the point where they are 60 years old. We're not only talking about from 7 years to like 18 years. So again, thank you so much for coming. And we have really learned a lot from you. And we hope to see you next time. And
thank you so much.
You're welcome. And guys, in case you have any kind of questions, in case you have a child who has a disability and you're wondering which school should you take them to, in case you want more information on what are the steps that I should take in, ensuring that I have a disability card, everything that you need to ask when it comes to any kind of disability, feel free to reach out, write messages. We always respond. And in case there was something that was unclear, we will definitely ensure that there is clarity. So see you next time, guys. Watch our next podcast. And that's all. Bye.
Bye.
Music Podcasts, the home of podcasts in Kenya.